but here I come in Stevie the Guide on the banks of the Guadalupe River. I completely forgot to turn this thing on, but I'm going to do it now. And hey, I love you. Me encanta. Hey, ole, ole. Buenos días. Dios te bendiga. Stevie the Guide here on the banks of the Guadalupe River, and I do this because I love you and because I want to develop my intuition. I was looking at this thing. And it looks like an internet device, but it's not. This is what I use for music. This is an iPod, an old iPod that looks very much like our modern day telephone, but this thing was not connected to the internet. All right, this thing is connected to the internet, and really, it occurred to me that this is really what we're talking about. This is truly what we're talking about. The iPod that's not connected to the internet. That's the left brain logical. All you can do is put stuff into this device, and you get out of it only what you educate into this thing. All right? This is the old kind. This is a very old device, I think, from the early 2000s. So that's an iPod. This is an iPhone. This thing is connected to the World Wide Web. It has a connection to all information that's out there over the invisible airwaves, and that's really what we're talking about, isn't it? That's the pioneering experience that I've been going on here for the last 50 episodes. This is a celebration of sorts for me because this is the 50th hour that I have now done this live stream broadcast every weekday morning from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. That's what I've been doing here, folks. And what I do is I celebrate the difference between this and this. All right, and that we really do this massive computer does have access to an invisible internet that we are only just now learning how to swim in. It's an ocean of information that we're just now learning how to access and navigate. And it is uncharted territory in many ways, although I believe that we're coming back around to where we once were. To where in ancient culture, in Egyptian culture, Sumerian culture, Hindu culture, Buddhist culture, long before the sort of a box was built around us in our education, in its various institutional forms that taught us, no, it's only the here and now. Do not look at that man behind the curtain. Just look at us, you know. And I think that the conditioning, I ran into an interesting quote that I think speaks to it. And I'm not sure where I saw that. Oh, I saw that here. But anyway, there's another one that says, in everybody's life, there's a point of no return. And it's very few cases a point where you can't go forward anymore. Very few cases. And I guess that's sort of off the track of what I was talking about. But I felt a little sad recently, a little melancholy about this whole thing, about the pioneer spirit in me that wants to explore and move out beyond the box, to think outside the box, to travel off the reservation, to go beyond where my teachers and leaders and others, people who love me, care about me, and they don't want me to venture into dangerous territory. And I feel very much like an explorer, which I am, but one who is committed, completely committed, for better or worse, to exploring all these unknown realms and leaving the safety of the tribe, leaving the safety of hearth and home, and going out. And I felt a little sad. I really have. I've had a cloud of sort of mild depression come over me, and I was really, it's the upshot of what I wanted to talk about today. There is a time in every explorer's life when he reaches a certain point, and he wants to look back and say, maybe we should give this up and just go home, where we know it's safe. Maybe we're pressing the envelope a little too far. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were right. All those folks back home. Think about this. When Christopher Columbus took off in those ships from Europe, and he had a vision, and he didn't quite know what, but he felt it, all right? And so they take off, and there's several points that are threshold moments in an explorer's life. One of those moments is when you leave the shore. You get in the boat, you're headed west, but you don't know where, and you leave the shore, all right? And there's a feeling like, God, we're kicking off from the shore here. And then there's another point where you reach the visible land, where you can't see land anymore. They call it, in Navy sailors' term, they call it sinking the land, where you watch the land behind you get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it finally sinks into the ocean, and you can no longer see the land. All right, that's a threshold moment. But the one that I feel like I'm at now is where Christopher Columbus's crew had been loyal for a long time. There's a famous story where they had been gone weeks or maybe months. I don't know how far they had gone. But at one point there was, Christopher kept telling him, no, there's land out there. There's something out there. I feel it. There's something. But he doesn't know, you see. He doesn't know where he's going. But he feels it, and he's committed to the expedition. But the sailors on the ship began to make rumblings of mutiny. They're like, hey, man, maybe there is no land out there. Maybe it's true that if we get out to the edge there, we're just going to fall off. There's an old saying, the old map makers, when they would make a map, they would have the land and all the known things, but when they get out in the ocean, they said, beyond this point, there be dragons. All right, beyond this point, there be dragons, and meaning we don't know what's out there, but it's got to be bad because we don't know what it is, and that really is kind of the moment I've hit on my little journey here. There's a sadness in me a little bit that says, maybe I should just turn back to the safety of the thinking of where I was. Maybe I should just, because I know that there's kind and gentle people there who love me and would embrace me if I just come back, and But like Christopher Columbus, my intuition says, no, there's something out there we need to explore. We need to investigate. What is our life all about if we do not engage in exploration and find the boundaries, the reality, pull back the curtain and see what's going on around here? But there is a fear factor too. Like, what if we get all the way out there and we can't get back, and there is nothing out there, or there's danger out there, and we've gone too far and we can't find our way back? All right. And expedition journeys are full of these kinds of stories where the people wanted to turn back, and it's called the point of no return, and that's where Stevie the God has reached today. It seems like this is episode number 50, and my general goal was to do 100 hours of live stream, just free flowing thought, and then see where that leads me. 100. Today is number 50, and it is the midpoint of that sort of general goal that I had made. And I'm feeling kind of strange about it. I really am. I've said a lot of things here in these last 50 hours of live stream. You can go back and look at them. They're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, elsewhere. It goes. This live stream goes through a manifold called Restream, and it sends it out to about 6 or 7 social media platforms, and so it's all over the place. This 5 a.m. rant that I do has gone everywhere, and so I've reached a point of no return. And there's a famous story about Hernando Cortez in 1519. What is it? 1519. Hernan Cortez took these ships to Mexico, and his job was to conquer Montezuma, to conquer the Aztecs, and basically take over the place and take the gold and everything. And they landed over on the coast of Mexico there near Veracruz, port of Veracruz, I believe it was. 1519. This is when, 1492 was when Columbus, went, he had the almost a mutiny, and he finally held off the men and made it to land and discovered America, where there was millions of people already living. He discovered America, right? And so he went back to Europe, told everybody, and then all of a sudden they started mounting these expeditions to come over here. And Hernan Cortez was one of the early ones, and he landed on the coast of Mexico, and his men were gathering information, trying to figure out how to conquer this big empire. And at one point, the men started making rumblings that they didn't want to go any further. They were like, man, this is too hard, and we're too small, and what if this happens? What if that happens? And we could get killed, and blah, blah, blah. And they started making rumblings that, hey, maybe we should just get in the ships and go on back to Spain, kind of regroup, maybe get some more guys, blah, blah, blah. But Cortez was single-minded. He's like, we got to be committed. So what did he do? Hernan Cortez sent some people out to the boats to retrieve everything off of them that was of value. And then one night, secretly, they lit the ships on fire, and the men woke up on the shore and looked out there, and their ships, their only way back to Europe, were in flames, and they burned the ships to the waterline. And then the next morning, while they were all freaking out, Hernan Cortez comes in front of him and says, okay, what do you think about conquering this place now? There is no way back. There's no way back there. And so you might as well gut up and get committed, because we're going forward. There is no other way. And there is, I believe we have sort of multiple voices in our head, and one is the leader that says we're committed, and some of the other voices are like, well, maybe we should go on back, and I just I'm at that point now, and there's these little rumblings of the crew in my mind that says, we're really stepping out here into the unknown, and we don't know exactly where we're going with this. But intuitively, following the intuition is the exercise, and there's a deep belief here that if you can, sort of loosen the left brain logical and allow the right brain intuitive to grow, to play, to dance, and explore. That something will be found, something of value will be found. And in the process, you become someone else. You become more balanced, a higher vibrational being that will spread that vibration to others. And in the collective, there is a Christ consciousness that rises. And this is what I truly believe is meant by the second coming of Christ. It's not, to me, it's not the physical form of Jesus coming back to earth more than it is the higher consciousness that I believe he was trying to teach us about. And that as we all grow in this higher level of understanding, that there will be a fundamental change in humanity, and we will gain a much better awareness of how to live and how to be and how to communicate on this level rather than on this level. All right, this is internet connected to all sorts of things through invisible airwaves. This is all there is right here, just what you program into it. It's iPod. And so my exploration here, folks, is to go to burn the ships. At hour number 50 here, I'm crossing the point of no return. I am reminded of a story one time long ago. Seems like in a past life. I was working in the Galapagos Islands as a scuba diving and wildlife guide in 1994, and I was going to have a few weeks off, and so a friend of mine came down from Texas. And we went, two friends of mine came down, Susie and Diaz de Leon. And Ricardo Diaz de Leon's a wonderful man. And hey, Ricardo, if you're out there somewhere, I'm looking for you. I haven't been able to find you. Ricardo Diaz de Leon. It's a wonderful guy I haven't seen since the mid-90s. And was in Austin, but I can no longer find him. Anyway. So Ricardo and Sue and I went to hike the Inca Trail. And the Inca Trail, this was an exciting prospect. Hike the Inca Trail to the lost city of the Incas, Machu Picchu. And none of us had ever been to Peru before. And so we went to the city of Cusco in 1994. And we thank God we decided not to do it on our own, but we hired a tour company to guide us on the Inca Trail. And we got some hiking boots. I told the guys to, they should be hiking around, kind of getting in shape because it might be, rather strenuous. And so just like all expeditions, the beginning is very exciting when you take off on this thing. And so we have about 20 people in our party with 3 or 4 guides that were with us, and they carried all the food and the bags, the backpacks and everything, tents, and they went on ahead with the donkeys, and set up camp every night. But this is a 3-night camp out, and it's a long way up through the Andes Mountains. You go, and it's really amazing. The Inca Trail, if you've never done it, is quite amazing. It's a feat of engineering, just like the all the unexplainable buildings all over there. Whoever did this had access to some kind of technology, because they didn't do this just with chisels and ropes and a bunch of slaves. Didn't happen. There was science behind the Inca Trail and all that goes on there. I've talked a lot about that. But anyway, this is a 3 4-day, 3.5 day, 3-night hike through the Andes. And the highest point you cross is like 13,000 feet. There's a pass that you have to do these switchbacks all the way up, all day long. You're just walking up and up and up. And it seemed like you'd get to a certain point and you say, wow, I think we're almost there. And then you round another corner and it would just go up and up. And you just, oh my God, all day. And we had already been hiking for a day or two. I mean, and so we're tired. We're really tired. And we got, blisters. I mean, Sue, she was very excited and she was in, reasonably good shape. But there was a part of her, man, that was not ready for this hike. And she's by the end of day 2, I mean, she's beat. And but it was just long and hard. And we were about halfway through the second day, maybe 2/3 of the way, and we're still looking at switchback trails that are going up into the clouds. It's long, and she's stopping. We're at the very end of the party. There's some guide, I think, that was way back that just had to hang. Every time we stopped, he couldn't leave us, and so we'd have to stop every few hundred yards, and Sue would stop and she'd start crying, and I'd take off her boots and she had these blisters I had to doctor, and I mean, she's just in physical pain, and then there was this one point where there was this a total meltdown, and I mean, she had dysentery. I mean, we had been the second night, we were staying in this tent, and I wake up, I hear her crying, and I said, what's the matter? And she's like, I think I went to the bathroom on myself. And so I was like, okay, you got to get out of the tent, and there are no outhouses, you're just out in nature there. And so sure enough, she's got long underwear on and everything. Got to take off all her clothes, clean her all up. She's, had diarrhea all over the place. Got to get her back, clean clothes on and everything. We're making all kinds of noise, keeping the camp up. She's crying. It's awful. And but I did my best to, help get her back together. We can get back in the tent and get all bedded down. And I'm just about going to sleep, and I hear this crying again, and I go, what's the matter? And she goes, I got to go to the bathroom again, and we got to go out into and it's cold, we're high in the Andes Mountains, you don't want to leave your bedroll and go out into the weather, but it was awful. It was tiring. The whole thing was exhausting. And here we are at this point on the trail, and she's at this point of exhaustion, where and when you get this way, you start to get somewhat delirious. If you might remember in that movie, An Officer and a Gentleman with Richard Gere, where the Sergeant Foley is working him this weekend, trying to make him quit, and he's just at this point of exhaustion, and but he won't quit, but he's broken down, and this is the way Sue was broken down, emotionally and physically, and I just can't take it anymore, and she starts saying, look, let's go back. I can't make it. I can't make it. And let's go back. And I tell her, honey, where are we going to go back to? We've just come, 2 days down this trail, up and down, and they brought us in a van to some edge of the river, and we walked up from there. There's nowhere to go back to. You have to keep going forward, all right? That's the only way to make your way out of here. Look around. We're in the middle of the wilderness in these mountains, and there is no going back, all right? And she had to come to a realization that if she could not muster the strength to carry on, then it was not going to be good. So, and I'm sure if she had a broken leg or something, we could get one of those burros and but wherever they went, because they had taken off, they were at the next campsite. There were no radios or anything. I don't exactly know what we would have done, but anyway, she rallied. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I gotta rally, and I've told a lot of my personal stories. I've poured a lot of my heart out here. I've sort of already gone way off the reservation and become someone else. And each and every day, you're becoming something new. And there's a part of me that's tired, a part of me that doesn't exactly know where I'm going with all this. But there's an intuitive side. That right brain intuition says, move forward, keep moving forward, and see what happens. But I'm happy to report that Sue rallied, and she made it over the pass that day. And when we got over there to the camp, everybody clapped when we finally made it into camp. And there was a man there, I think he was from the state of Georgia, and he had some kind of powder he had gotten from the Center for Disease Control, and it was specifically for rehydrating people with dysentery and stuff. And he gave us both some of that, and it made us feel a lot better. And we had some tea, and it wasn't all downhill from there, but it was all a lot easier after that day. And so I'm sort of hopeful as we cross this pass here that new energy and new life will surge in, and we'll find the land, But I was just thinking about this passage that I read about education, and where was that? The great harm of half science, especially if it is accompanied by what's called the classical education, is that it tends to divert the best minds and cause them to become mentally and morally unbalanced, as the case may be. That's a guy named Gerald Postnecker. And basically what he's saying there is he's saying that our intuition is educated out of us. That our educational system and the study of sciences, and basically what I'm talking about with this non-internet device as compared to this internet device, what he's saying there is that we are taught not to use our own intuitive internet, that this brain stay a non-internet device, and only use the left brain logical what is put into it. As much as possible, our education system oftentimes says, memorize this stuff and then you will be successful. Do not go outside of the box with this thing, this internet device. Your right brain intuitive is the access to the internet. The left brain logical is the storage of everything that just regurgitates whatever's put into it. And you have both, ladies and gentlemen, moms and dads, boys and girls. There is both here. But what he's talking about is our education system causes an imbalance in us. And that's what I've been talking about. That we are imbalanced creatures, and part of the reason that our population is going crazy and off the wall in so many different ways is that we are not accessing that higher knowledge, that higher internet of information, which we are capable of doing, but we are trained since birth not to do. And from 0 to 7 years old, we have the amazing abilities, but by the time we get to be about 6, 7 years old, they're shutting down that internet on your brain, and they're just forcing you to memorize stuff that they want you to know. And that's not all bad, folks. There's a lot of information that's good, but without the use of the internet, All right. What would your telephone be like? What would your iPhone be like if you did not have internet connected to it? All right. And that is the expedition that I am on. It is my belief that people who knew how to build pyramids, people who knew how to engineer the Inca Trail, people who could do all manner of different things back in the times of Egypt and Samaria and Atlantis. I believe that they had the full use of their brain. And that included an ability to access the higher invisible realm of information. And if you don't believe that, that's fine. But I always go back. My prime example of something that's measurable and provable and observable, just like science tells us, is these people who have acquired Savant syndrome. They are hit on the head. They are struck by lightning. They have a stroke. They get a disease. They have a near-death experience. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they have access to much higher knowledge. They can do advanced mathematics. They can speak a foreign language. They can write and play symphony-quality piano music, like my favorite guy who got struck by lightning. Now, how in the world can they do that? From where does that knowledge come? Hello, all you nice people who are chiming in here. I don't mean to ignore you. I have to put on my glasses to see who you are. There's Mike. Steve, you should go outside and kick some rocks. That's what I do, Mike. I kick rocks and look under stuff. And there's Ollie. And is this live? Yes, it's live, Ollie. And hi, I can't even hardly read that. Ador 8011 J Power. Anyway, hello everyone. I don't mean to ignore. I just kind of get on a stream of consciousness, and I have to stop and look at this little sidebar to see all you guys, who you are. Thank you for kicking in with us today. But all I can tell you is that I have a feeling, just like Christopher Columbus sailing out on a ship. He didn't know the land was out there. He just knew that's what he needed to do. He felt that there was something out there, so he pressed on, and he overcame mutinies in his crew, which I think is what we have to do sometimes. And we have to overcome this educational system that says, look no further. You have religious institutions, and you have, public education systems, and you have corporate teaching. You don't realize that corporations have been teaching you a bunch of stuff, okay, through the government, okay? What have corporations been teaching you? I think pharmaceutical companies are the obvious example of teaching you what's good for you and what's not good for you. And how do they do that? Well, they wrestled control of the government and created an agency called the American Medical Association. And those corporations are what guide that, started by John D. Rockefeller, who had the monopoly over the Standard Oil Company, and then the pharmaceutical, or the petrochemical industry, and then pharmaceuticals. And so how the American Medical Association governs what's good and what's not. They're the ones that decide, no, you can't use the natural plants of the land. You got to buy our shit in the pharmacy. And it's not all shit, folks, not to take everything away from pharmaceutical companies. Thank God for some of the antibiotics and other cures. It's just that pendulum of their business model has swung way out of control, and it's dumbing people down. These antidepressant, anti-anxiety drugs, man. A lot of what they do is that they suppress the intuition. I don't know. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a doctor. I don't give medical advice. But all I'm saying is there's a lot of forces there, and they've been teaching you. The American, the American Dairy Association. You think they haven't been teaching you? They're the ones that created the 4 food groups. Their powerful lobby made the 4 4 food groups when I was a little kid. They give you this little chart, and you got to have, meat, and you got to have grain, and you got to have vegetables, and you got to have lots and lots of milk products in order to be healthy. Is that true? That's not true. But it sure made them millions of dollars, and so they have been educating you in all kinds of ways, and you've got to be able to take that education and then distill it with your intuition. What works? What doesn't work? What is correct? Do we really gotta be the biggest producer of military industrial hardware and sell it to people to kill each other with? I wish the world was different, and my ambition here, I don't believe there's a way to combat this, frankly, because what all these industries are going to tell you is that, hey, if we stop producing guns and bombs and all this other military stuff, well, it's going to devastate the economy, and it will. It absolutely will. You got all kinds of jobs. Fort Worth, Texas would probably disappear. They got so much, military production, a Raytheon, and all those things that are going on there. If you stop having diseases and people got healthy and cured, well, that would be devastating to the economy. And they're on and on, there are all these different things. And so how do you combat that? All right. When the business model of a medical company, when their business model is not to cure you, simply to manage your disease, what do you do about that? They want to keep making money, and all those medical staff and people who sell pharmaceuticals want to keep making money. And we don't want the economy to fall apart. All right, it's all based on this money thing, and so how does it happen? Well, Stevie the Guide's plan to save the world, and the mysterious course which I'm navigating right here, the scary, unusual, into the unknown course, is to try to figure out this imbalance between the left and right brain for the human being, to bring up the right brain intuitive, to somehow find those ways to loosen the grip of just this left brain logical and come up with brand new ideas that we haven't even thought of yet, that are available to us on this wider internet that I'm talking about. And it's there. It is. You have gut feelings, you have intuitions, you have all these things. And oftentimes the last couple of years in the Forbidden Discussions, which is the weekly group I've had here in Kerrville and also in Austin, I meet with people every week who once they come into an environment where I foster some protection and safety, they tell me about all kinds of amazing things that come up, but they're afraid to tell it to the general public. Why? All right? Because we have been educated. This left brain logical has been so highly educated and so highly shaped into a creature that says no. Pay no attention to your own lying eyes. Pay no attention to your own intuition. That's bullshit. All right? Just pay attention to what we teach you and speak when spoken to. Basically regurgitate whatever it is, and then you will be rewarded. Then you will be safe. Do whatever our interpretation of the world is, because that's how we maintain the status quo. But I'm telling you right now, the status quo ain't gonna fly, and this whole thing's gonna fall apart pretty soon, because we're on a train wreck here. We're on a collision course between the business model of corporations and the needs of humanity. This is what this whole political argument is all about, okay? And I don't get political here, but make note that if you swing the balance way out either way, it's not going to work. You swing the balance way towards capitalism, and then all the companies own all the marbles and enslave all the people and do whatever they want. You swing the balance the other way, socialism, communism, eventually we see what happens. All the government people get all the marbles and enslave all the people. That's a problem. Either way you go to the extreme, that pendulum swings out of balance. So it's got to come to an equilibrium. It's got to come to a balance, all right? And in the balance, that's where God lives, all right? In that balance, somehow or another, folks. When you finally hit a certain balance, you access a whole new realm of information, and that is the saving grace. That second coming of Christ that I talk about. That second coming of Christ consciousness. I believe that people had that higher Christ consciousness once upon a time. And these people are our cousins. These people who could build pyramids, who could do all these amazing things that you read about in the Bible. In the Hindu texts, especially, and Vimanas flying around and had laser beams and nuclear power and all this stuff. You look around this planet, folks, and it's weird to me. Most people don't ask the questions, They just go about their lives, and as long as I got enough food and money. I'm a curious boy. I'm an explorer, and that's the way I've always been. And I want to know who were these people that could do all these things like build pyramids? Who were they? And how did they do these things? And most importantly, what is my relationship to them? How are they related to me, and how can I evolve into a person with a higher knowledge? And my desire is to try, like Christopher Columbus, who doesn't know where he's going, who's facing a mutiny. He is willing to try to, and he's willing to die, frankly, and he's willing to take all his men with him. He's willing to die to find out what his intuition is trying to tell him. All right, and in doing so, he's one of the successful explorers. There are many who were not. But we celebrate that expedition in particular, even though he was apparently a terrorist who was part of enslaving, the New World and all the people in it, and taking what he wanted out of it. And so I'm not celebrating Chris's morals and ethics. I am celebrating Christopher Columbus's his intuitive desire for exploration. Intuitively, he knew something was out there, and he's willing to die to go and find it. And that, my friends, is how he passed the point of no return. That's how he burned the ships, basically, in his mind. That's how Hernan Cortez went and conquered Mexico, which was a horrible, enslavement of the people and all that. But his ferocious will to pursue what he intuitively felt, that's admirable to me. And it's your intuition that drives you. The left brain logical, that has a lot of the morals and ethics and rules and regulations of how to treat other human beings. That's another matter. And the intuition will tell you. It will always. That intuition will always lead you to the love of Christ, to a higher vibrational level, and in that balance, the intuition, I believe, is where we need to be, balanced with our logical. This right brain comes up with the ideas, the left brain carries them out. But you've got to let the right brain come up with the ideas first before the left brain, carries them out, organizes them, sets goals, and makes accomplishment. And so this is how it comes to me, folks. I refuse to go back, even though there's a part of me that says, where am I going? And maybe it'd just be much more comfortable to revert back to where I was. The home fires are burning back there, and maybe it'd be safer and less difficult. But I can't. I can't go back because I know if I go back, I know that I will be right back in that sort of closed little mind that's always wondering what's out there beyond the horizon. And I'm not built that way. I'm not. I would rather die, actually, than not explore where this right brain intuitive is going. I believe that saving humanity involves each of us figuring out how to balance our left and right brain. A good meditation practice. I always talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's an amazing guy, very well spoken. You can find him on the internet, and this guy has a plan for how to loosen up your left brain logical and bring up your right brain intuitive, bringing that balance. Meditate. A simple meditation practice is so valuable. And I'm talking to myself here. I struggle with it every single day. Because why? You can plainly see that Stevie the Guide has a chattering mind. And I like to talk, and my mind talks to me from the moment I wake up in the morning. And it's counterintuitive to me to sit down, be still, tell my body, like a puppy that I'm trying to train. You're gonna sit. You're gonna sit your ass down, and you're gonna close down your chattering mind. You're gonna give that little monkey mind a job, which is simply to pay attention to your breathing. Pay attention to your breathing. And in doing that simple exercise, simple but not easy, in doing that exercise, you will find eventually entering into a stillness and accessing a higher well of understanding. That small, still voice they talk about in the Bible. It's a small, still voice. It's not the loud, chattering monkey mind. It's the small, still voice. And in that is tremendous power. Tremendous power. And it is the difference right there, meditation practice, from this or this, which is a non-internet device, all right? This old iPod, all right? Non-internet device. This is a powerful internet device with all sorts of powers. And that is what we're talking about here. And that is the exploration that I have to go on. And that's the hill I'm willing to die on. All right. And somehow in the development of our human mind and our using it not just as a earthly non-internet device. What I'm going to say is using it as a transmitter receiver to access the internet, to access a television or radio signal, because we just use a small band of information, and there's so much more out there. It's like a radio that's stuck on only one or two stations when really there's a whole multitude of stations that we can tune into. And there's evidence of that with these people that have acquired Savant syndrome, and all of a sudden this guy can play symphony music when he's hit by lightning and his brain gets jolted. This is real. This is measurable and observable, just like scientists want. All right? There's many cases of this. All right? People can do this, and I believe it's not just getting hit on the head or struck by lightning. It's a process of development that we need to settle down and understand. And as we do that, as each one of us lets that light shine, we give people permission to do the same. And as you create a comfortable level, we are so sensitive, people. We're so sensitive to being outcast, to being labeled as weird or freaky or crazy. We're so afraid of what other people think. That is a negative. It's an invisible. It's like you have radar and you have counter radar, and this fear-based thought that's prevalent in our society, it keeps us down. It keeps us away from who we really are. This fear that they shine on you, and they push you away from the group, and they violate your need to belong to other human beings. You don't want to be out in the cold, and so you cloak yourself in this garment called normal, and you pretend that you're just like everybody else, when really you're a unique vibrational creature that can access a spiritual realm that's beyond your imagination, and that there are forces out there, spiritual forces and informational forces, and all sorts of frequencies one can tune into if they can just settle down. And Albert Einstein was reported to have said that it was when they stopped teaching him in college, and he had to take the job as the lowly patent clerk, and he had plenty of time just to sit around and think, all right, for himself. And it was then that he came up with the 5 famous papers that changed the world. The original thoughts and the theory of relativity and all that. It came to him from the deep well. He was not taught this. Mozart was not taught music. He arrived on this planet with this knowledge. And so I submit to you, sleeping human being, that you are capable of such things too. It is just a matter of your practice and condition. It is a matter of you trying to develop this amazing gift in your mind. Oftentimes we are led to believe that we are small and we are by ourselves. We're not capable of anything other than what's deemed to be our station in life. And I believe that you're very capable of so many things you can't even imagine. J Power, yes, it's hard to have intuition when we are used to listening to the internet all the time. It's true. It's absolutely true. And that's a good observation, is that a lot of times we just look at stuff, we're consumers, all right? And I'm as guilty as anyone of being a consumer of internet information. We sit around and we just ladle this stuff into our mind. And I find myself sometimes looking at old movie clips or looking at interesting things on Facebook. I'm guilty of just browsing Facebook and finding interesting things and sharing them on Facebook. Makes me look like an interesting person. But instead of simply being a consumer and reposting things on Facebook, or just watching a TV program, maybe it's time to start producing something original, right? That's what I'm doing here. That is the exploration. And I don't care what it is you do, boys and girls, but you need to be creating something original all the time, rather than just sitting your ass in a chair and being a consumer. All right? Stop consuming so much information and start creating something. I don't care if you paint pictures or sing songs or dance dances or tell stories or whatever it is you do. You need to start creating that thing, and intuitively you know what that is. You may, make metal art with a blowtorch. You may be fantastic with a chainsaw. All right? It doesn't matter. What does matter is that you start becoming creative and you start producing something that's unique to you, and leave the world with a little bit. There's a saying that I'll leave you with. It's that, do not let the songs die within you. Do not. You have certain creative gifts. They come right out of your intuition. You may sew quilts. You may, any number of creative things. Look around. You already know what this is. You already know what this is. All right. But oftentimes we are afraid of expressing our original art. All right. Our original self. And why is that? Because of that invisible internet frequency called fear. All right, fear that they will look at us and say, "Hey, you're no good." It's like on Back to the Future. What if they say I'm no good? What if they say you got no future? What if they say, "Get out of here, kid. You got no future"? I don't think I could take that type of rejection. Rejection, fear of rejection. You got to fight your way through this shit, okay? And you've got to create something that is originally yours, all right? Originally yours, and practice. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing badly in the beginning, all right? It's worth looking ridiculous. In order to find your way through this creative art that you know is in there. You know it is. All right, there is something in there that you like to do. People say, "Oh, I don't know how to do anything. I don't know." That's not true. Every human has some kind of creative thing that they like. All right. I remember one time I was in the mission field, and there was this woman that was going to come. I was down. I was a Christian missionary down in Peru for the Baptist church, and before I went off the reservation, so to speak, and I got a lot of heart for the Baptist church. I love them so much. But I went to Peru, and my job was to get these different churches to send mission teams down there. And there was this group of teachers that was coming down, and this lady, Linda Zinzig, her last name was Zinzig. She was a cute little lady. And I called her up from Peru, and I said, "Hey, are you coming on the mission trip? You come down with the teachers?" She's like, "No, I don't really think I'm going to. I'm not a teacher, and I don't know what I'd have to offer." And so I said, "Well, what do you like to do?" And it turns out she worked for the Civil Air Patrol as a volunteer, and she had always wanted to be a pilot and always wanted to fly planes. And she talked to pilots, and she was really into airplanes, although she didn't fly. And I said, "Well, why don't you create your own class down here?" And she was like, "Wow, could I do that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure you can. You can do whatever you want to. What is there something you might like to teach?" And all of a sudden she starts thinking, "Well, wow, I could teach about rockets, and I could teach about airplanes, blah, blah." And this woman came down to Peru, and instead of teaching like English or math or something like that, she had the coolest class where she created these little hovercrafts with CDs and balloons, and she had these little airplanes and little balsa wood things. And basically what she was teaching was that if you get your education and develop your mind, that one day you could be a pilot and you could fly. You might even get to go in the space program and fly in the space shuttle. And she inspired the hell out of those kids, and it's because she came up with something that was uniquely hers, and that is what's inspiring. And I'm going to say it again and again because I love this quote from the Johnny Cash movie Walk the Line, with what's the actor's name? Anyway, there's this scene. It's my favorite scene in that whole movie, where young Johnny Cash is trying. They're at an audition, a music audition with Sam Phillips of Sun Records, and they're playing some old gospel tune, and Sam doesn't like it, and he said, "Okay, well, I can't produce that because it doesn't sell." And he says, "Well, what? That's it? We play here just a little bit." And the guy says, "Look, you know what I'm talking about." He says, "If you was hit by a truck and you was laying out in that gutter dying, and you had a chance to sing one song, one song that people might want to hear before you're dirt, one song that would let God know how you felt about your time here on earth. One song that would sum you up. You telling me that's the song you would sing? That same old Jimmy Davis tune about your peace within and how it's real and how you're going to shout it? Or would you sing something different, something real, something you felt?" Because I'm telling you right now, that's the kind of song that people want to hear. That's the kind of song that truly saves people. It ain't about believing in God, Mr. Cash. It's about believing in yourself. And I love that quote. And I'm going to say it over and over and over and over and over, because it is truly about believing in yourself, and stop listening so much to what the crowd thinks, because it is when you leave the crowd and you get into the silence. The reason the silence is so important is because it puts you in touch with yourself. It puts you in touch with your feelings, your thoughts, and allows you to access that deeper internet that is possible for all human beings to communicate with. It is your connection to God, your connection to spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I encourage you, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason I am so passionate about it, wow, you were a missionary in Peru, you would have a lot of stories then. Yes, Jay Power, I do have a lot of stories. I was a missionary in Peru. I was a scuba diving and wildlife guide in the Galapagos Islands. I worked as a volunteer for the Australian Institute of Marine Science on the Great Barrier Reef. I traveled all around the world with oil and gas exploration companies. I lived in a Buddhist monastery for a year and a half. I worked with shamans doing plant medicine down in South America. I've done a bunch of stuff, and part of the reason that I do this live stream is because I got a lot of stuff to tell before I die, before I'm dirt, all right? And so yes, sir, I was a missionary in Peru, and I'm very grateful for 20 years in the Baptist church. But at some point, I grew out of that box, and I love them for the education they gave me. But I cannot ever again completely commit to an organization that only allows some people to go to heaven. All right, and you either do it our way. It's my belief that God brought us here; He's taken us all home. All right, that's what I believe, and however you want to shake that out is your business. But that's what I believe, is that it is about unity here, and I'm tired, frankly, of a world that's separated from each other, and that it's us versus them, and it's our party versus yours, and our religion gets to go and yours doesn't, and our education is better. I believe there's so much more information to access here. Humanity has such a limited scope without that right brain intuitive, and so anyway, that's how it comes to me. It's already after 6 o'clock. I love you with all my heart and soul, and I'm going to give it to you however it comes to me. As my main mission is to be honest and authentic, and speak straight from the heart, and so that's what I'm going to do. I love you, and Stevie the Guide here in Kerrville, Texas. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you.